In 2021, we lost half our member base. The old coaching staff took the half of the members and went and opened their own gym, and we came back and rebuilt Pendulum, and 3 years later, in December of last year, we finished with 85K, so it's been quite the journey.
Activity spurs activity, right? And people that want to show up and use something because it's a cool place to be and their friends are there are going to get more results than the person that's like begrudgingly showing up to the gym because someone told them they have to, or they're telling themselves they have to. It should be I get to do this, not I have to do this, right?
Just trying to make my first $10,000 month. How in the world I can't be $1 million gym? Sure you can. It starts with your vision. Peptides, TRT, and semaglutide. That is the future of our space.
Welcome to the Barbell Business Podcast. This is the show where we explore the tactics, mindset, and strategies of gym owners and fitness entrepreneurs who are making waves in the industry. Each week, we uncover the stories behind their successes and the lessons they've learned along the way. Our guest today is no stranger to the fitness industry or this podcast. As a former D1 strength coach, he has decades of experience in guiding athletes and everyday individuals to achieve their fitness goals. He's also a former guest on the original Barbell Business Podcast, and we are excited to have him back. In 2014, he founded Pendulum Fitness, a boutique gym in Pasadena, California, specializing in group training, semi-private sessions, and private coaching. Over the years, he's taught more than 20,000 sessions and classes, growing his gym into $1 million micro gym. His passion for fitness and weight loss programs has transformed countless lives, and today he's here to share the key strategies behind his success. Please welcome Drew Girton. Drew, welcome to the show.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, man. Thanks for joining us today. And let's get started with your story. I want for you to be able to share a little bit of what inspired you to get into coaching, and how did your journey lead to founding Pendulum Fitness in 2014?
So it all starts with an insecure boy that was small, 5'7", 126 pounds, and knew that he couldn't get taller. So I got into fitness. I read this book called Body for Life by Bill Phillips in 2000 and changed myself and my body, and ended up putting on 14 pounds of muscle in one summer, went back to school, and all my fraternity brothers were like, "What happened to you?" And I was like, "I think I like this." And I switched out of pre-med. I don't know, my wife says that was a bad call, but we ended up going down that road of a strength and conditioning coach. Worked for Western Michigan University for 2 years, working with their football and hockey team. Put 5 guys in the NFL during my time there, and then came out to Pasadena, California for my master's degree, and ended up staying out here and been out here for 20 years. So, after grad school, I was like, I need a job. And so I started applying at gyms. At that time, I was doing some personal training on the side up until that point, but most of my focus was on school. Ended up having 2 offers, one from Equinox, one from 24 Hour Fitness. Equinox offered me a management job, but it was in Westwood, which would have been quite the commute for me, and I don't like driving. So I was like, all right, well, we're gonna stay with this one that's local, and that ended up leading to me to gather quite a bit of success. Within 6 months, I went from being a trainer to a manager. I had a lot of success with 24 Hour Fitness just as a trainer. And then they offered me a management position. I took it. I hated it. Within 3 months, I went back to being a trainer again. Had more success. They came back to me, offered me a better gym, and I grand opened that gym in Walnut, California, and that's where I ended up meeting my wife. She ended up working for me. I don't recommend doing that if you're in the fitness space. It worked for me, doesn't mean that it'll work for you. And then in 2012, I had gotten into CrossFit. Well, I had been into CrossFit since 2009. I was like, I think I want to open a CrossFit gym because I wanted to be able to have a home in Pasadena. That was my goal. And I knew that it wasn't going to be able to happen while being a manager for 24 Hour Fitness. So, because I like the cost of living out here and the cost of homes is exponential. And I was like, well, if I'm my own business, if I have my own business and I'm successful and I can bank on myself, then I'm going to go all in on me and we'll do that. And so then we got pregnant, and then I freaked out. So then I doubled down with 24, and then I couldn't shake it. I just could not leave the fact that I wanted to be a gym owner, and because I knew that I could do it better. I knew that I could do it better than how 24 and Globo gyms say, hey, this is how you run a gym. And so my wife and I ended up starting the process in 2013. We opened a CrossFit Pendulum in 2014. We rebranded in 2019 to Pendulum Fitness. This is, still the same logo that we had all back, back then. And then we looked at selling the gym in 2020. We moved in 2021 to Austin, Texas, and the sale fell through. When we moved back, the gym was split. We lost half our member base, and the old coaching staff took the half of the members and went and opened their own gym. And we came back and rebuilt Pendulum, and it's triple the size of what it was when we took it back. And we took the gym back from 14,000 in December of 21, and then 3 years later, in December of last year, we finished with 85K. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. Classic case of Michigan boy moves west with no idea what he's going to do, lands on a couch somewhere, and finds some success. Because that's for anybody that doesn't know, I'm also a Michigan boy that moved west under similar circumstances. I basically landed on a buddy's couch and was like, hey, let's I guess we'll figure it out when we get there, right? I knew I just wanted to be in a sunnier place with prettier girls around me, pretty much. And here we are years later, and there must be something in the air that us Michigan boys move west and decide to make something of ourselves, right? Huge success, man. Well, I'd love to know a little bit about the name Pendulum Fitness and what that means. It's obviously branding's a thing in the marketing world, but generally we pick the names because it means something to us. And I'm interested to hear the story of how it reflects on your philosophy and why you chose that name.
We chose that name because when we opened the gym, at the time, it was still, you would find gyms that were either CrossFit insert city, right? So it would be like CrossFit Pasadena, and there was directional. So it was like directional CrossFit. And then there was the other side of it that was like CrossFit, insert the most extreme thing that you could think of.
Yeah,
Right.
CrossFit blood feud.
Yeah, it's just like blood red sky. Okay, and we did not want that at all. We wanted to be the antithesis of that market. We knew that we could offer a different quality product, which was coaching, because CrossFit gyms at the time, it was just starting to become, coaching was starting to just become a thing, and where you had to do it in order to keep people. And we came into it because we said, man, we want to be able to coach people. And so Pendulum came out of the name because it was really hard to find, a good name. And my wife and I spent a lot of time on it. And it was during my birthday. She took me out for a birthday day. And she blindfolded me. And if you are a highly creative person and you remove a sensory, it can be really, really effective for how you start to dream up and visualize things. And so she blindfolded me, and we're just spitballing as we're driving down the 210 freeway. And she says, and we're coming up with names, and then we just going back and forth. And she goes, "What about Pendulum?" And I was like, right, because once you start in motion, you stay in motion. And she's like, yes. And then she goes, but live life in motion. That is our motto. And it was just like bam, 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 bam. It was so fast. It was powerful. It was like, that's the name. And then, so immediately, then you go over to the CrossFit affiliate website and you type in the name to make sure that the name is available. It was like, ooh, we got it. And I didn't tell anybody about the name because I didn't want somebody, it was so easy to start a CrossFit gym at that time. Just fill out the form on the website. Do you have an L1? Sure, go ahead, do the thing. And so we didn't tell anybody. We wanted to be very, very careful with that. I don't know if that was necessarily the best idea now looking back, because we were afraid to market in a way. But yeah, that's how the name came about. And we still hold to those principles today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember those times, man. And in regards to like we said about being afraid to market. I mean, that was those times, man. I remember. I mean, I owned a CrossFit gym in Southern California, and we opened it in 2011, and it was kind of the same until about 2016, 2017. That's when it started to kind of shift and really be kind of really saturated. But back in those OG days, man, it was kind of just build it and they will come. Almost any group fitness gym, not just CrossFit gyms. It was a millennials were coming of age and wanted to do something different with their fitness than the prior generations, and there's a new movement, right? So yeah, it was super exciting and it worked out, right? Now, obviously, you've reached this milestone of $1 million micro gym, and that's a huge achievement. Not many gyms have done that in a year. In fact, we've, here at Big Little Gyms, having served over 1,000 gyms, we've helped a lot of gyms get there, but it's still a very, very small percentage because there's a lot of variables. One of them being space, one of them being your market. And then it also depends on the owner. I mean, I would say it's like you can blame the car all you want, but the driver is the biggest upgrade you're going to make, right? So, I would definitely say you're a driver, right? You're a guy that can make the car go faster. So I'd love to hear what are some of the steps that you took to grow Pendulum Fitness, or what were some of the shifts you made, I should say, along the way? Because, you came being a coach and a trainer. Personal training background helps a ton because sales is a very important part of that career path. So I'm guessing it was probably baked in, but a lot of gym owners walk into this without any business acumen. So I'd love to hear, how maybe some of the things that you found out the hard way, some of the challenges, and also how you shifted and overcame them.
The reason why that I was successful is because I have always had an entrepreneurial spirit since I was a kid. I've started all kinds of things. I was a part of helped launch a fraternity in college, and I was in and out of bands, like rock bands. And so a lot of the things that I acquired and were skills in other areas. And so by the time, when I was a D1 strength coach, you learn how to program, you learn how to coach people, you learn how to motivate. And when you become a trainer, you learn how to sell. And I was already a dynamic personality by the time that I got into this space, and I had the ability to sell already. And that, gym owners don't know how to sell. And coaches like CrossFit coaches, or coaches who are part of a micro gym, they don't know how to sell. And so a lot of our success is because I wasn't afraid to smile and dial. I knew that was going to be the lifeblood and the success of my gym, is that I got a lead. You got to call that lead, and you got to get them to show up. You got to, it's not just ooh, I got a lead, they're going to enroll. No, you have to be able to convince them, because maybe your product isn't the right product for them. And so you have to get to know them. And so I will say that there are the skills that allowed for me to be successful were I knew how to train, I knew how to coach, I knew how to talk to people and care for them, and I knew how to sell. And those were the four things that led me to being successful out of the gate, where most gyms, because in 14, it wasn't there were 14 CrossFit gyms when we opened in Pasadena. 14. There are 2 CrossFit gyms that are technically CrossFit gyms left now. And, sure, there are the micro gyms that are functional fitness gyms that used to be CrossFit gyms that were, have de-affiliated. And there's no shade there, because we did at one point. We de-affiliated before everything went down with Greg Glassman. We sent in the message on Friday or Saturday, and then the tweet came out that night. And so I felt really proud of that, because I thought we were ahead of the time. But so, and we have since reaffiliated since then. But we are very incognito on that. You can't really find it unless you go scrubbing, and that's on purpose, because I don't want people to make that decision. And maybe we can get into that a little bit later. But the skills that allowed for me to have even more success was in 2018. 2017, I became actually a barbell business coach, and that was really cool. I had already had success leading up to that point, got to be a part of that squad, that team. And then 2018, the market had really started to shift, and leads were becoming, people just weren't enrolling in the same way. And so I was like, I need to, there was in 2017, we found this company. It was called the New You Challenge.
I remember them. Yeah.
The New
That
You
was a big thing for
Challenge.
a couple of years for gyms. Yeah.
And so they would do all the marketing and selling for you, and they would just plop the people in your space, and then you were responsible for retaining them. And so I set up a system off of that in order to convert people on the back end, and just treated it as basically like, sure, I think it was $50 a head. And so we ended up having like 30 people like per group that would come in, and I was stoked on it. And we would change the name and call it like a different avatar for different things, and it was cool. And until it didn't work. And so then in 2018, I learned on how to do Facebook ads, and started running Facebook ads for myself. And that was that was cool. What I didn't know then is that I would turn them off. And so, like, I had this acquisition channel that I would turn them off, and then I was like, cool, all right. But then my numbers would dip. And then I was like, I didn't like that. So then I was like, okay. When we came back from Austin, Texas in 22, I've been running ads nonstop since we came back. I don't
Yeah.
turn them off.
I remember having that conversation with you. You already were pretty sharp on ads compared to most gym owners. I mean, you were already like 98th percentile in regards to like the understanding of how to do those properly. But I remember having some conversation. I remember having the conversation with you during the call, and you were like, "Oh, I just turn them off and on and turn them off and on." I remember that was one of the shifts you made of like, because we can get into more details on specifics of Facebook ads deeper in the call. But sometimes it is a little shift like that of like understanding the way a platform works that can have a big change. And what was the shift you saw when you stopped doing that?
So, I mean, the thing is that like I used to just market to get people. And what I had to learn was that maybe that campaign was still running. And I shut it off when I shouldn't have shut it off. Like people were still, it was a good campaign, you know? And now, because of what I look at is I look at numbers, and I let the numbers dictate everything for me. So I am a day trader for my gym. I look at cost of acquisition. I look at how much my leads cost, how much it costs to acquire a client. I look at overall show percentages, lead to book, lead to schedule percentages. I look at all of these things because then I can make an informed decision about what is really going on and not an emotional decision. So I'm a business owner and an entrepreneur at that point, so that then I'm looking at scaling. And that's where I'm currently at. Is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's cooler than $1 million?
Two.
Yeah, I want to know what's cooler than two?
What's that?
Three. And so that's where we're going, man, is that like I don't want to be limited by what other gyms say. Oh man, that would be so successful. I write that story. Nobody else gets to write that story. I get to write that story. And if all I need is like, well, that's not possible. You can't do that many people. Why not? Like, that's a limiting self belief. So take the things that you are excited about and be like, well, why not? And my son, who is 10, had to break mine. I was like, oh, let's get to 300. And he's like, it'd be cooler than 300? 500. He's like, can we do that? Can we fit that? Can we? And I was like, yeah, we can. We have the space, and it would just be like if we moved this like this. And so it's, that would, and I remember in 2018, I had a conversation with somebody else who runs another gym guru company. All right. And he said, Drew, you are not that gym. You don't need to acquire that many people. And I was like, oh, I want to get 300. He's like, nah, you do quality. Like, just keep adding like value and have, a larger cost per person, And I was like, okay, now screw that, man. I write the story.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I think that's where me and you both get down is that there is a lot of limiting beliefs in the gym world. In fact, it's like, man, it's very rare I meet a gym owner that really has a growth mindset. And a lot of them think that they do, but then when it comes to like doing things like running ads, the understanding of like the nature of the type of client that's going to come from ads and how to handle them differently. And then it's not just, if you're churning those people, like, sure, you are going to churn those people at a higher rate, but it's also like your fulfillment processes might not be as good as you think they are, right? It's going to expose you a little bit. And then also this thing around like, that a full gym somehow means you're going to serve people at a lower rate, when in reality, I don't think we ever provided a better product than when our gym was just bustling with energy. I loved walking into my gym at 5:30 p.m. on a Monday when everybody was off of work, and we had, our gym had 3 different spaces in it, and we had 3 different programs, basically a build, a CrossFit, and a move class, which were 3 different types of programs for different types of people. And there would be 30 people in each, and we had coaches leading each one. And man, I'll tell you the rate of success we have with clients and the buzz in the place. Because at the end of the day, like, activity spurs activity, right? And people that want to show up and use something because it's a cool place to be and their friends are there are going to get more results than the person that's like begrudgingly showing up to the gym because someone told them they have to, or they're telling themselves they have to. It should be I get to do this, not I have to do this, right? And so, yeah, I mean, you've done a fantastic job of that, and have a similar understanding that it's not, a lower quantity of people doesn't necessarily always equal a better quality product, but there's a misbelief that it somehow does. It can, but it doesn't necessarily always correlate.
Yeah, challenge yourself. Like, ask those harder questions. Push, I'm really grateful and thankful for my wife because she is not a enterprising person. She is a quality control person. And so I can go and try and break the machine by acquiring and just keep things running, the score up. That's what I'm great at. She is going to look at the product and go, we're not doing a good job. And then, so that's been really, really helpful for us.
Yeah, what you just said there nails it, right? Your job, I like to look at it this way too, man. This is probably why we're such good friends, is like, we come from a sales background, both of us. I spent 4 years as a salesperson for General Motors, won all the awards with them, have diamond rings from them. And it was the last like real job I had before I jumped off into entrepreneurship. And so going into entrepreneurship, I always, viewed things through the lens of like, well, let's just sell things and like, let's see what breaks and then we'll fix that later. It's kind of a build the plane as you fly it mentality, which there are far more. I mean, it's got to be like 10 to 1 or 100 to 1 success stories of like success rates from entrepreneurs who start with a sales first mindset versus a product first mindset. Like, don't get me wrong, you don't want to go out and overpromise and underdeliver people. You never want to do that. The product should be good enough to fulfill on your promises, but most people tend to over engineer a product for not even knowing if anybody wants to buy that specific thing yet, right?
Yeah, it's really important to keep pushing the envelope. Do not rest on your laurels, and because ultimately people are going to leave your gym. That's just the truth. You may be the best coach in the world and people are still going to move.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to have the ability you have to keep that pipeline full. And at the end of the day, like, evolving with the times, fitness has changed a lot over the last, decade since you've been doing it, 11 years since you've been doing it with your formal business. And then even the years before, how you get a good pulse on where things are going is like the objections you receive in the sales process. You'll know if you're starting to miss the mark a little bit, because it's gently, you get into volume, you can kind of gently be presented with like, our offering needs to shift a little bit here because we're starting to get a few more no's or people asking about a specific thing. Whatever the collective offer is, it's different for so many different gyms, but it is how you stay ahead of the curve with that sales first mindset. So question for you, obviously you guys offer large group, you guys offer semi-private, and you offer private training. And there's gym owners of all those types that are listening to this podcast and are in our cohort at Big Little Gyms. How do you balance those things on the fulfillment side to meet the needs of your clients while also staying profitable? Because obviously there's a lot of overhead in staffing all those things and delegating so you could stay on the sales end and keep, driving the boat.
Yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard. It would be way easier if we were just a large group gym, right? I would make way more money if it was just a large group gym because then I would not be focusing on building careers for my coaches. And here's the thing is that I went from trying to focus on my family and building something for us to now, like, I want to be able to build something for them as well. And I mean that. Like, I have only full-time staff now. This was a dream. This was a complete dream. I have one part-timer, one. And she's been with us for 3 years. She loves us, and she's not going anywhere. She was an OG member, like when we first started, and then she left, grew up a bit, came back, and but the cool thing is that we have a staff of all full timers, and I'm sorry, that's not true. My content guy, my media guy, he's part time. So like we have a media guy. Um, I have an appointment setter who's full time with benefits. That's the other thing that we offer benefits, full benefits for our staff. I cover 75% of their health care, and if they coach more than 20 hours a week. So if you're asking yourself, how can I get to offering, like getting my coaches to care, getting my coaches to be full time, make it worth their while. Like give them a comp plan that makes sense, that they would want to show up and work. Because if you are, and that's the thing, is that I knew that I was going to continue to keep having churn problems if my coaches were also churning. So, there's this thing in business that you can go from, you focus on your gym and then you grow your gym, and then your shift and your focus needs to go from growing your gym to growing your staff. And then there's just these levels to the game. And then from there, I mean, like we talk about this on calls, is that there are different levels to these quadrants, and I'm trying to get to that point to where eventually I only have to show up to meet with my department heads. Yes, I want department heads. Or as what we call them, silos. And so that would be our sales silo, our coaching silo, and our ops silo. And so that those three things, the different positions are underneath those people. And it's a really important thing, that if you have to think long term, you have to think larger than just group classes, and you have to think more than, like, what are you trying to achieve? You have to have a vision. If you do not have a vision for what you want for your gym and where you would like it to go, you're going to continue to keep running into problems because you're going to get stuck. So some of you out there right now are going like, I'm just trying to make my first $10,000 month. How in the world I can't be $1 million gym? Sure you can. It starts with your vision. It starts with your own beliefs. And so I would not get caught up in certain things until you go, this is where I want to go. And this is how I'm going to do it. And then you reverse engineer it. And I looked at our system and said, group coaching is bottomless. And it's just is going to keep acquiring people. Now you can have the best gym with the best culture. Oh, I love our people. They love me. They do until they don't, man. And the thing is that people are going to quit and they're going to leave your gym, and that's okay. And you need to understand that. And your coaches are going to quit and they're going to leave you, and that's okay. And so being in this game for I've been a coach for 24 years, man. So I've seen it all. You got to ask yourself what you want. Group classes is for me. That's where I make my most money. Then semi-privates is so that my coaches start to make a livable wage. Because they coach group, they coach semi-privates, and then they do personal training. And personal training is where they make the most money. So the model is set up in a way that if we have coaches who are hungry, they can be really successful and make a lot of money. The goal is this year is to have 2 of them do over 80 grand.
That's fantastic.
80 to 100 grand. That's the goal for them. That's
awesome. Yeah, it's all about scaling up that dollar per hour, however you can inside your gym. And for most group model gyms, that's kind of the recipe. That's what we did with our gym. Very similar, where we had gotten to a place where we had 300 members in our group program, and it was great. And it could provide, we could afford to pay group coaches, maybe 40, 50K a year if they're full time with us. But same thing, we wanted to get it to where, like, At the time with inflation, it's a little bit different now. We wanted to get to where they could buy a home in the greater Scottsdale area and afford it, right? Like they could hang their hats on this as a career. And also that was a kind of a mission oriented thing I have, which I know you also share as you've stated. And so we did something very similar where and this is kind of a tactic for gym owners that might be listening, taking a page out of Drew's book, and we did it as well. Is we didn't add on semi-private because it was what everybody necessarily was shouting for. It was growing in popularity, but we already brought everybody into our gym with a semi-private on-ramping anyways. And it was like, coming from the sales world, I know the easiest thing to sell people is the thing that they're already buying. And if they signed up for a $400 or $500 front end on challenge or on-ramping that included semi-private, that's what they were going to learn to love at the beginning. And there was going to be a percentage of those people that were going to be an easy upsell into semi-private. So, we would do our 5 or 6 on-ramping sessions in the first 2 weeks. And at the end, all we had to do was ask. We would have the coach that ran those semi-privates with that group of 4 meet with each of them individually, and we had a sales script basically and a menu, and we would say, hey, okay, and you're going to move into your large, they didn't speak in the same wording, that jargon that we use, but you're going to move into classes, group classes now. But you've come a long way in just these 5 sessions, but it looks like, I've made some notes. You need to work on these things. Semi-private, we could continue to focus on these things, or even privately, one-on-one, we can focus on these things even more and accelerate that. And it was like a 30% take rate of people that would choose to go from the $200 a month, because that was our price at the time, group class, and just upgrade it to like a $400 or $500 a month semi-private, or like thousands of dollars a month package. And those coaches were getting in a small group, and you could share with people tactically how you do it, because I'd love for there to be some actionable takeaways for everybody listening. We would do, and you could share yours too, a per client per session. So if someone had, say, three semi-private clients in a hour's class that they were doing with those 3 people, they would get paid for all 3 people stacked in that 1 hour of time. So same amount of work for them, 3 times the rate. So they could work, say, come in and coach like 10 semi-privates in a week and make like an extra whatever that would equate to probably a couple $1,000s. You want to share a little bit about how you would run your structure? You don't need to get too granular, but if you want to share a little bit of like how you scale that up for them.
Yeah. So here's the first things first. You need to know as a gym owner how much that you want to take home. What is the profit? You run a business not to be self-employed. You are not trying to just be like, oh, well, I have this full-time job that I never would have worked this much, and here I am working 80 hours and I have no profit. I'm telling you, man, you gotta have profit baked in first. Profit First, great book. Start there, read that, execute that. And Profit First was one of the first things that like blew my mind wide open. And that's when I started to look at things differently. And I started with like a 5% like profit margin. I'm up to 30 now. And that's, that's awesome. And so that is where, so I run our business so that I can make profit and that my family can live. I have taken all of the risk. And if you are out there right now as a coach and you are saying, oh, well, I got to pay my staff more, I got to do this. And like, I'm telling you, man, you've already started to do the thing. That's great that you are a kind person. Okay. But I can tell you that the billionaires and the multimillionaires of the world look out for themselves in the same way that your staff does. So your staff only cares about themselves. They ain't caring about anything else. So focus on profit first. Second of all, it has to make sense for your business. And so, being kind and giving them all these, giving them all this money is great, but it needs to make sense business-wise. So we use a 4/9 model for most of what we do, and it's priced accordingly so that I still have 30% that I make off of it. And then there's a flat fee for personal training. Whether that, and that's the crazy part. There's a flat fee for personal training. When I was working for 24 Hour Fitness, and what we initially set up is that it was a variable. So based off of their package, their rate would change. So let's just say that, George would sell 30 sessions and George would make less per hour, but would have 30 sessions. So if George wanted to be smarter, he would sell packages of 8, right? And make more money. and that would be like a recurring model almost in a way. But you run the risk of that person leaving sooner. So we said, all right, what if we just removed all of that and just had the coach focus on what they need to focus on, and that is just flat rate. So they have a flat rate on that. The second thing is that for semi-private, it does matter on how many people are in there. So, 2 is the minimum in a semi-private, and then so that is the lowest. Then there is it goes all the way up to 4, and if I fill 5, then somebody is on deck, because we're going to then. So if there's 5 in there, they don't get a bonus on that. We're going to focus on adding another semi-private time. And then what we do is we backfill off of that so that we can launch another semi-private time and another coach can come in. And now we have 2 and there's 4, right? So there's one that's full and then one that is starting. And that's just how we roll it. The group is a very nominal base. The group is there to fulfill and make me money and to keep the gym afloat. Right. The EFT on that, we are the most expensive gym in our area. We try to beat Equinox on pricing for most things because Equinox sells amenities, we sell coaching.
Yeah.
So
you sell an outcome.
Yeah.
They sell features.
Yeah. Absolutely. They sell their smell and their towels.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you shared there. That's kind of like the bigger premise behind Big Little Gyms as a whole is like the self-employed versus business mindset. If someone's coming to us, it's like we're not here to just slap a tactic on something and make it incrementally better. Generally, it's shifting the mindset from that self-employed mindset that most people are very proud of, right? Self-employed, for a lot of people that come from the employed world, which is most people, is like something to be proud of. And it is an incremental step, but it is still has the word employed in it. Right. And you're kind of employed by the worst person you could be employed by, which is like an inexperienced CEO that doesn't really know where they're going. Right. So really what you want to be is, we talk a lot about like the cash flow quadrant, and we use some similar frameworks to that, which is in Rich Dad Poor Dad's book and was mentioned in previous other podcasts. This always comes up that where you really want to make the move to is from that self-employed place to that business owner place where like you have delegates on your team that are pursuing a career and you have systems in place and you can make decisions logically versus trying to wear both hats of being like the in the business employee doing all the sweeping of the gym, cleaning the kettlebells, all the admin work, and trying to half-ass the CEO position. I like to say like, why try to half-ass 10 things, whole-ass one thing, right? Like, and so it is making that step from the, being the muscle of the business, because muscle is the thing that everybody can do. So it's also the thing that's the least valued. And in most businesses, the positions that pay the least are the muscle, right? Like at McDonald's, the guy that flips the hamburgers would love for him to get paid more. But at the end of the day, it's the least skilled thing to do because everybody can do that thing, right? As you move up the ladder, you move into management. That's the second app, right? Which is something that not everybody can do. And the third one, which is I think you have stepped into and where most business owners who get above the middle step into is making money with their mouth, right? They get a layer of management between them and the burger flippers, if you will, the muscle. And don't get me wrong, as a business owner, small business owner, sometimes you do have to step back down into the muscle role, right? Johnny's sick with whatever, and you got to go mop the floor today. It happens every now and then, but that's not your primary role in the business, right? Your primary role in the business is to be the top of the organizational flow chart with a layer of management in between. And ideally, what you found a way to do, which is the best thing you can do. If you have to have a job in a business, if you in a business that you own or any business, the job that pays the most in almost every business are revenue generating positions, CROs, CFOs, and salespeople, sales executives. Those people always make the most money. And the reason why is because their pay gets to scale with the increase in revenue the business makes, right? And it's no different with a business that you own. If you can find a way to delegate all the $20 and $30 and $40 an hour things so you can go do the $1,000 hour thing that is sales, and you're welcome to share what you sell your stuff from, but I know you have a high ticket menu mixed in with your normal group class menu, and I know you're selling $1,000 things. Sitting down and selling for Drew is $1,000+ an hour task, and that's just on the front end. That doesn't include what the lifetime value of that client is worth over 18 months. It's probably a 5-figure an hour task because you only got to sell them once, right? and one could argue that there is some resales along the way, but like that front end sale, you only got to do once. Once they're in, it's much easier to incrementally upsell them to other things. So why not do that for your business and for yourself? And it aligns with that profit first mindset of like, well, I'm going to align myself with the most profitable position in the company, which is sales, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna throw it back. If you want to go back to YouTube and dig this up, but in my original Barbell Business podcast interview, I talked about if you do not get yourself out of the business, you're going to hit a ceiling very quick. I said that back in 2017, and that still rings true. So that was one of the first things that I did. I got out of coaching. Like I have been in this role for a very long time. So I mean, 7+ years now of just basically being the gym owner guy, right? And the other part of that is when we did come back from Texas and we lost all of our staff and members were like, I told my wife, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to step back into things that I have not done in a long time. It was very, very beneficial because I got to clean a lot of things up and said, who do we want to be? And like, where are we going? You have to ask those questions like, what is acceptable? What is not acceptable? How does this SOP work? How do our classes all look, sound the same way? And so and I tell my staff this, is that there are a couple of things that every coach will bring their own flavor and seasoning, but we offer the same burger. We're going to cook it the same way, and each chef is going to put their own, they're going to add, I like to add avocado with mine. I like to add bacon with mine. And so sorry, that's on me. I don't know why that came through. It's not supposed to.
It's okay. My phone, I thought it was my phone. All good.
So the important thing there is that you have to understand that whatever your core product is the thing that you need to move forward. And when you get faced with hard times in the business and you may have to step back into being a coach, how do you use it? What are you using it for? How can it get better? And right now, all of my stuff is to buy back my time. So Dan Martell, second book, Buy Back Your Time, is if you do not have an assistant right now, you are missing out on major opportunities of growth. Dan's model for how he uses his is different because he's got multiple companies. How it would look in a gym business may be like, all right, what are the things that you hate doing that you can offload those tasks? So is it cleaning the floors? Is it cleaning your gym? Is it responding to emails? Is it reaching out to members and checking in on them? Is it responding to leads, right? Like, and having somebody who's faster at that. Like the one thing that if you suck at sales, you need to get over that and you need to go get some training because your gym is not going to grow until you do that. Or if you are an amazing entrepreneur, you can go and hire for that, but you will lose out on your margins by doing that. So
they need to show up to the big little gym sales calls each month.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not listen to somebody who's done hundreds of thousands of sales and learn from those people that do it better than you, acquire the skill, and then get better? I know a lot of people don't like him, but Grant Cardone, prolific salesman, and he talks about you cannot, do not read books on sales without doing it. You got to go in it and fail, fall on your face, and be like, oh, I should not have said that. And then go and read the books, then go and do the thing. Like, just try. If you're not trying, you're going to miss out on all of this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's, I would say some of the biggest shifts we'll see in our clients that aligns up with what you're saying is when we get them, we work to turn them into sales or install the sales mindset in them. Because there's just a lot of people that have moved from whatever career path they were in, which were most people's career path prior to owning a gym wasn't a sales role. Most people worked in some sort of fulfillment or operational position because that is most jobs in most companies, right? The sales force in even a big company is usually like 5% of the team. One guy sell, a couple of guys sell to make it so, the 90 other people can have jobs fulfilling on the product. So most people come from that and walk into the gym world and treat it the same way. Like, oh, I need to build a better product. I need to have better operations. And that is important, but they've never had the sales mindset installed, which is something you would learn. There's a few career paths that you could have as a young man that would install this in you. One of them would be like car sales. One of them would be like for personal training, any type of door-to-door sales, like, just a lot of reps, a lot of smile and dial, and a lot of getting the phone hung up on you, a lot of opportunities to figure out how to say something different, how to read body language, how to understand language patterns, and like when someone is, unknowingly or knowingly not necessarily giving you the real objection of what the issue is, so you can approach it and figure out how to navigate those waters, right? Those are something that you just learn from having the reps, right? So where we've had the most success, or not the most success, it's one of the things that has led to some of the most success, is when we get a gym owner that it clicks on the sales end. They learn the no sweat intro process. They know the gym offer codex. They install that, and they learn how to sit down and do proper consultative sales and price and offer their product the right way using psychology like price anchoring and different heuristics. It's crazy. That gym owner, they won't sell any more or less people. Well, they will if they do the marketing stuff because they'll get in front of more people. But say they sat in front of the same number of people and closed the same number of people, they will 2 or 3x the value of those sales just from those shifts. And it's like, and then I'll hear from gym owners that's like, oh, their competitor gym is $170 a month and they're $200, and they're like, oh, we're the highest price in the market. And it's like, but then meanwhile, here's Drew Gerton selling $1,000 things on the front end, right? And that's because it's all about the way it's presented and how value is positioned and selling on outcomes, not necessarily, like you said earlier, like Equinox. They're selling a set of features, right? The towels are fragrant and the sauna smells like vanilla lavender, right? It's like, okay, cool if you want a spa experience, whatever. But, if you're signing up for the gym for the specific outcome of becoming the fittest version of yourself in a specific amount of time, that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, those are the things that you need to develop, is learning how to sell. The other thing is there's always going to be somebody better than you. I know that there are better salespeople out there than me. They may be more dynamic than I am. They've spent more reps doing it. The other thing that I would tell people to do is like jump on a Zoom call and record yourself, and because most people don't want to do the mirror thing, but you can face the camera and you can look it right down the pipe and you can talk to it and you can go through your sales process and you can work on that. And then you can watch it back, and then you can see how you stuttered. You can see what didn't go right. You can see, I could have made that better. You can adjust your tone. Everything can get a little bit better because it's been really bad, and you will get better. So just do it. But I strongly encourage, people to work on developing skills more than anything else. And the other part is that when you sell solutions, you can charge a premium. If you sell memberships, you're going to be stuck with racing to the bottom line. And there's always going to be somebody out there who's going to charge cheaper, and maybe they're better at marketing than you are. But what's really fun is when you know how to market and you charge a premium thing and nobody else in your market is marketing and you make way more money then. That's the fun part.
It's not just get more customers. It's not just get more members. It's also make them worth more, and it's also keep them longer, right? It's all three things. It's not just, because you see a lot of that in the marketing gym guru world, right? Like, we compete against it all the time here at Big Little Gyms, where it's like most of the companies that gym owners are comparing us against are some company that's like get more leads, right? It's like, okay, like you solved like 1/10 of the problem, right? Like the next thing is like, okay, so we get more leads. Can we also increase conversion rate? And then can we also increase the front end value of that customer? Can we increase the lifetime value of that customer? Can we actually change the sales process to be part? I always look at sales, we do here at Big Little Gyms, and we did at our gym, is sales is actually also the first fulfiller. So like the way someone buys something will determine how they use it, right? And if someone comes in and it's the same crappy sales process as before, and it's just like, hey, would you like a membership? How many would you like? Or here's a free trial. Like it'll, yeah, like, whatever. It's like that's how they're being indoctrinated into your program. There's no emotional investment or sunk cost into like, like you would have in a proper consultative sales process where you actually are talking about to the customer about what's your current situation, what's your desired situation. Okay, cool. Let me show you how we get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And at the end of that, they're like, that feels to me like a $10,000 outcome. And you're only asking me for $1,000 today. Okay. Sign me up, and they're shelling it out. Right.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely.
So moving forward, just to switch gears a little bit, the fitness industry, it's always evolving. And obviously you've been around, man, you've been in the game about as long as anybody. Maybe you can speak a little bit to the trends you've noticed in boutique gyms and how you've adapted to stay ahead. I know we've spoken on this a little bit. And then also, like, I guess a little bit of where you see the market going. Because obviously, like, I feel like fitness trends are a little bit generational. And like what was cool for the millennial generation coming of age post 2008 financial crisis and the markets all coming back was different from the time prior. Fitness looked like a totally different thing, with things like CrossFit being the big, one of the big movers, right? But there's other things that have since come along, and then there's been an evolution of that. And it's safe to say there's probably going to be another revolution of fitness for the next generation, right? And some of the people listening here may not have a concern about that because their gym is just going to age up with them, right? Like as their gym's been around, everybody's just gotten older with them and they continue to serve that demographic. But there are some gyms that are going to want to stay ahead and be able to serve that next consensus age generation. And I know you're a guy that isn't resting on his laurels and wants to continue to grow. And ideally, if you can serve the consensus age generation, you're going to have more upside because they're the ones that are coming of age, that are coming into their careers. They have more money and they're going to want to spend it. And they're still in that age range where they, trends are important to them. So what do you see?
Yeah, I've been in this industry as long and the multiple stages and phases of the industry. From being a Division I strength coach where you make no money. If you think that you're wanting to become a D1 strength coach, you make no money. You can make more money being a awesome gym owner or awesome trainer. Yeah, I don't know if people know this, but in 2023, there was $3 million strength coaches. Alabama, LSU, and Michigan. Only 3. So if you think that you're going to be one of those people, right, good luck. Not trying to diminish your dreams if that's what you want to do, but being there, you work crazy amount of hours and you get no pay. So it's cool. The other part was like the large group, sorry, not large group, but like big box gyms were all the rage until they weren't. And then, when CrossFit came into the picture and really started to cut into that, and in 2011, I went to our regional vice president and said, we have a chance to destroy this movement now. If we adapt our gyms and we start making like squat racks, pull-up racks. And I saw it coming. And I was like, we could literally cancel this entire thing out and they won't be able to do it because we'll be able to offer cheaper, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. No, we're going to stay in our lane. We're going to keep doing what I'm like, okay. And then I left because I wanted to do it. So then that happened. And you saw the rise and the boom of micro gyms, of CrossFit gyms. CrossFit is dead. And I own one. CrossFit is dead, is not coming back. Don't wait for Greg Glassman to come and save you. He's not coming back. And on top of it, HQ ain't going to save you. They're not. And that's not their responsibility. So if you are a CrossFit gym owner and you think that HQ is supposed to save you and supposed to do something because you pay a yearly fee, that is so that you can use their name. And it is worth the $4,500 that you get to use so that you can say that you offer CrossFit. That is still a really good thing. And as of right now, until I may change my mind on this, but for $4,500 to say that we offer CrossFit so that we don't have to be like, oh yeah, we're a functional fitness gym. Well, you look like a CrossFit gym. Oh, well, we used to be. And then, so what do you do now? Oh, CrossFit, but we don't call it CrossFit. Then it's a mess. And I think that if CrossFit actually were to go back and look at that and say, people are still offering CrossFit, we could be better for them somehow, some way to save that, then maybe it wouldn't die. But High Rocks is killing them. because of the competition side. So High Rocks understands the competition side has made it super simple for people to go and do competition, and they do them everywhere, and it makes it repeatable and easy. The only thing I think with High Rocks that they miss out on is that they need a heavy component, and the sled is not it. What I think that they need is a heavy component of like a deadlift, and that there's like so many reps that they need to be done at 315, because 315 would remove like all the tall skinny guys that are not strong, that are great cardio people, will get demolished by that.
That's me, Drew. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's okay. We're just trying to even the playing field.
You already have that in CrossFit. Isn't the CrossFit Games champs all like 5'6"?
I've never been a CrossFit Games champion. 5'7".
Yeah, totally joking.
Yeah.
I haven't done High Rocks yet, just because it came along after my foray into gym ownership, and I've gotten into other things since. But I've seen it. I was like, oh, that looks like it's built for me, because I was the guy that would like, isn't it Karen, the workout with the wall balls and the rower?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
like I was the guy that would like destroy that workout, because I'm 6'2" and 215, right? So I've got enough mass and length to really move a rower. But then if you ask me to, the what's the cost of the benefit, the upside would like start to tip off for me, reasonably strong being 220 pounds, but being long, it's not necessarily a short path to get barbells over your head, even if you're strong, so it's like, everything gets more complicated. So I was like, I liked that I had that going on. But anyways, not to interrupt you, go on about High Rocks.
So High Rocks is killing it. I think that High Rocks eventually will also fade away, because just like Spartan races have faded away, the money comes in, money ruins it, and then people stop doing it, as it's not as convenient and frequent, and it's just different. I think I said this back in 2018, when I had gone, Barbell Business had us come out for the games when they went to Madison, and it was awesome. It was cool, but it was not the same as it was in Carson. And in 2018, I made a claim that I thought that CrossFit was on the downward trend. And as soon as they got rid of their media team, there we go. And so it's because people, I mean, look at Formula One racing. Like, people care about Formula One racing now because of Netflix, because they made a media component, and that there's stories that you can tell that people get behind. If CrossFit were to care about their affiliates and change the messaging and how the things that they did, and then they added the media component back in, I think that they would see traction back up. But in 2018, I said that CrossFit eventually would go to the strongman. So strongman events are, show up, and there's like a handful of, dudes that do it, and that's about it. Like, that's where I see CrossFit. Micro gyms as a whole, I think, are going to also dissipate, because you see like Five closing like all kinds of different gyms across the country. Orange Theory Fitness has kind of lost its veneer. And so these gyms are like, they've reached their peak. And then what happened in 2020 is that everybody ended up working out at home. 30% of those people have not returned to the gyms because they set up home gyms. And so, they're working out by themselves at home, and Rogue and Rep have absolutely killed it on the home gym front. And some of those people will return to CrossFit gyms or gyms that are, functional studios. But in my opinion, when you offer three things, granted, I'm biased because this is what we do. You have a premium price product, you have a medium premium price product, and then you have a group model. Now you have something for everyone, because that premium person with personal training, still, there's always going to be personal training clients. So I think that how we're positioned with our boutique is very intentional. There is that. The other thing that I see happening in the fitness market is that I think that you're going to see more smaller Globo gyms that are owned by other people. So that are, really unique, really cool spaces that are modern big box gyms, but smaller, and that have such a vibe. And I think that people like, man, I would love to do that. It's just that here the cost for rent is insane, so it's not the profitability, and making that just isn't the smartest right now. But so I think that there's that, and then my last thing, peptides, TRT, and semaglutide.
Mm-hmm.
That is the future of our space. You guys can bookmark this. You can come at me on this, but I'm telling you right now, the sooner that gyms start to embrace this, the faster that they're going to get results for their members and their clients, and they're gonna think that it was like this combo effect. Yes, if it's done right, that combo effect is so lethal. And yes, I am looking into it. And as soon as I can make it happen, it is happening here. And you will also make more money because it's no different than selling supplements, but these supplements actually work.
Yeah. You, I think, are speaking exactly to the truth of it, in that, say, don't even, obviously people that are deep in the fitness world have opinions, but if you just zoom out and look at like every movement and revolution in any technologies ever, there's a very repeatable curve, right? And back in 2010-ish, when the current fitness movement that spawned all these different fitness technologies came along, well, they all shared a collective set of things, right? Community, group, more functional, more lifestyle oriented, more sustainable. And then along with that, in the late phase of this cycle where we're at now, we're starting to see like kind of the next generation of technology starting to pop up, which are things that like have been toyed with in the last decade, but just haven't caught on or reviewed as very premium, right? Like virtual is something that I think eventually someone will figure that out. Like it just, you have every generation that comes along is more and more in these devices, right? So it's safe to say that that's their environment, and eventually no one's really figured that out yet. Like during COVID, there was a push and Peloton was kind of really making a headway in that. But then as soon as it died out and people wanted to get back out there, their stock tumbled and people started going back to gyms. I don't think gyms are going anywhere. I think you're seeing, we see in like every late phase of a tech, what they call a tech adoption cycle, which are usually like these 8 to 15 year cycles. And if you say 2010-ish was the beginning of the current cycle, that means we're 14 years in. You start to see the shifts, but you also see a consolidation of all the best parts of the previous of the cycle's technology, right? And that's what like you just said is like it used to be CrossFit gym, personal training gym, semi-private gym, Globo gym, and now you're seeing like the really good forward-thinking Globo gym is trying to adopt, like, Lifetime did it with like Alpha and still has it. Whether or not they did it right is up for debate. But you're also seeing some of the best group gyms like yours go up market, right? Mm-hmm. There's a convergence between the bigger box gyms coming down and consolidating things as they see opportunity to eat up market share and take it back. Because they just want bodies in their doors. They don't care how. And then you're also seeing the premium group gyms consolidating and eating up market share and knocking out the smaller variations. And so it's always gonna be around. It's a legacy product, and it does fulfill on some very basic human needs of getting outside, getting out of your house, getting in front of people. But there will be that next generation that does adopt maybe doing it virtually, and someone will figure that out. And at first, it'll probably be a lot of different things, right? I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I mean, we don't spend a lot of time on that for the sake of time, but I like talking about the future on these podcasts. It's good to get people thinking outside the box.
Virtually, I did that. In 2020, I launched. There's the axe in the top corner over here. Where is it? Over there. And I won an award for doing that online. I ended up selling $250K in a year online. No ads, just cold outreach, like organic outreach. Because I didn't know if I was going to have my gym, man. Like I'm in California, we were shut down. And so I had to figure out like on how we were going to make it. And so I went online, and I didn't like the delivery that I set up. If I know what I know now, I would set up something completely different, which would be a group model, very similar to how BLG is run. And I would offer programming, give people a community environment to show up to, that they can be on a weekly call if they want to do the weekly call. That's how I would do it if I were to redo it. But I love the in-person component, and I think that there are all these online trainers that are out there that are garbage. They're not good. They don't know how to coach people in person or online, and they are selling products, and people are giving them money, and it's snake oil at that point.
Yeah, I think 2020 kind of forced the issue, so it was kind of temporary, and there's opportunity there for sure, right? Like there was opportunity, especially if you're a gym owner that had a book of business already. it's really easy to say, hey, like, do you want to just park it for now, or do you want to like come online with me for now and we keep this boat moving? But then obviously, like, because it was forced, it wasn't really like the mainstream wasn't adopting the technology. They were kind of forced into it, right, to go virtual. But there will be, I think, it's probably maybe a decade or two out or whatever, but someone will develop a platform in a marketplace where it can bring together these things in the right way. And it's not going to knock group in-person gyms out. Like, a lot of gym owners get really threatened by this, so they get very prolific about it, about speaking out against it, saying people aren't going to do that. It's like, well, just watch. Someone will. You know what I mean? Someone will, and a few people probably will, and there'll be some big players, and that might even be the next way the mainstream audience does their fitness, right? But that doesn't mean there's not going to be still, I mean, a huge number of people, more than enough to support a 200 or 300 member micro gym in most markets. It's just going to only allow for the best players. It's not going to be like what it was in the last decade, where like, oh, everybody's doing group fitness. There's so much demand here. There's so much demand here that we can create unlimited supply of gyms, and even the people that suck can get by. Like I don't think that's gonna fly in the forward generations when you're no longer just competing against other micro gyms, but you're competing against other available technologies that people are actually choosing to adopt, because that's just the way life is evolving, and how people are adopting technology. So, and it's not a threat to the best gym owners. If anything, the best gym owners will be viewed as the place worth getting off your device and going in and hanging out there. The Drew Gurtons of the world and the Pendulum Fitnesses of the world, it just more or less is going to trim the fat of all the people that are kind of suckling at the teat of like just excess demand in the marketplace, right? Which was like, you said 2014 CrossFit in Pasadena, California, 14 CrossFit gyms, 12 of them aren't even there anymore, right? And it's like they were just, when the market is that busy, everybody can get a piece of the pie. It's like crypto, right? Like you don't have to be, it's a completely speculative asset with most of the coins have no tangible real value. Like you don't need to be good. You just need to be in. Right?
Yeah, to piggyback off of all that, in 1996, my dad had this this diamond seller show up to try to get him to enroll in their scheme, their pyramid scheme. You want to know what that was called? Quickstar branched off of Amway products. Okay, Quickstar was an online platform to sell things, e-commerce online, before Amazon had even taken off. So, I remember them sitting in the living room with my dad and mom saying, this is the future, that people will buy things online and it'll ship to their house, and that's how people are going to consume in the future. And we were like, and my dad was like, absolutely, I'm in. Didn't make any money off of it, right? But he saw the vision. I remember being like, no way, like we all go to stores for this stuff. Guess what's dead? Malls.
Yeah.
Malls are dead.
Yep. They've all had to pivot. They've all had to find other ways to fill and lease space, like there's literally
a gym owner in Kansas who thinks that they're not gonna, how dare you? Like, guess what? It's gonna change. You either adapt or you die.
Yeah. Sears was part of like Americana, like Sears stores that were all in the malls, like through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 20s. Like no one would have ever thought like Sears, a place where you buy your Craftsman tools and get your jeans at, that would ever go anywhere. And Sears closed down, I think 99% of their physical locations, and most of those buildings are now server farms. Crazy, right? And so it's the nature of the beast. And to kind of even counter our own thoughts here, like there, I have a brother-in-law I'm very close with who's Gen Z, and like he like having kind of forced, come of age into technologies, 20, 21 years old, it's interesting, the Gen Z coming about, some of them like kind of want nothing to do with it because it's all they've ever known. And like the cool thing is to actually not be on technology. It's almost like being a person is cool again. So I do think there's always going to be people that want to go to in-person things and shop. And you are seeing it come back a little bit. Like movie theaters are bouncing back. And they were almost dead. All of them were dead. And because there's still kind of a cool thing about going to the movie theater and getting popcorn, right? So there's still going to always be a market for that. But the only chains that have survived have been like the good ones that are focused on experience, right? They're not just focused on being a commodity, right? Like Sears probably didn't survive because it's like, well, they tried to be a one-stop shop. You can buy tools and jeans here. Doesn't make sense. That's what Amazon is going to crush, right? That's what the bigger mainstream platforms people are going to create for the next generation of fitness are going to create, is the commoditized version. If you're not a commodity, you're going to have something there. And if you're outcome and experience focused, there's always a place for you in the market. Yeah. So this is good stuff, man. Obviously we can keep going long, but we'll move it along for the sake of, closing out our amazing conversation here. I know me and you could talk for 4 or 5 hours, and we have many, many times. Lessons for other gym owners, with over 20,000 classes and sessions taught, what's one lesson that, obviously it's hard to quantify all that into one lesson, and maybe you've already said it, or maybe there's something else that comes to mind, but what's the one lesson you've learned that you think every gym owner should know, if you had to give them one thing?
Stop spending money on certifications and learn how to sell and learn how to run ads and market. Yeah, those are like, you got to learn those skills if you want to continue to keep growing. Use the things that you do so well already about thinking about programs, about coaching people, about how to do, and develop yourself. Like don't keep going down, miles, right? Now start moving outward by inches, and it doesn't have to be by a lot. Like, it can be little things, and that can change everything. And then once you realize that, you realize that there's way more out there than just being, a gym owner and a coach. And not that it's a bad thing. If you want to do that the rest of your life, that's fine. I'm asking myself that question now. And you and I have had that conversation. Like, I have very large goals for 25 years from now. And my gym is not going to be able to be the vehicle of which I get there by. But I do believe that the skills that I'm acquiring now will serve me later. And if the gym is still in the picture and it's just a part of my portfolio, that's pretty rad. But yeah, you gotta get more skills, man.
Yeah. It's so funny. I just mentioned my 21-year-old brother-in-law because that's literally a conversation I just had with him, because he's about to graduate college. He's done a great job staying focused in college. It wasn't his favorite thing to do. He's probably a kid who probably wouldn't have chosen to go, but his parents were like, hey, we set this aside from you. You're going to go if you don't have other plans. And so he went, but now he's in coming up on his last semester, and he's anxious as all get out about getting out into the world. And he's like, man, what do I do? And I love speaking to that younger generation, the 25-year-old me, if you will. I mean, at 25, I knew what I wanted to do. I was rare in that regard, but like most 25-year-old versions of us in this day and age probably don't really know what they want to do yet and are still figuring it out, or maybe the 20-year-old versions. But I told him, like, hey, man, just go get reps doing a lot of different things and find out what you're good at, and then figure out how to be really, really good at a couple things, like be world-class at a couple things, And I did tell him, like, hey, sales, if nothing else, you can always make a paycheck selling something. Like, if this all came crumbling down tomorrow, like, I've won enough awards to know that I'm in that top 1%, that I can show up on a sales floor and probably make enough money, even in a bad market, to cover my bills and take care of my family, right? That's something we can always lean on, right? Yeah. What you got a pen there?
Would you like to sell me this pen?
Yeah. Sure.
The question is I don't even really know if you need this pen.
Right. Yeah. 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 Did you got something to write with, or like, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that the response? Isn't that the how you're supposed to respond to that one?
Yeah. Do you have something oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You got something to write with? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I need it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, skill acquisition, and that's funny, man. Like, I look at business as like a constant evolution of myself. And I always talk to people when people ask me about like my personal evolution and like growth and what I'm focused on. I talk about myself in like software versions. Like, there's the main big reboot of the system, which is like the 1.0, the 2.0, the 3.0. And then there's the incremental improvements to the system, the updates of that the bigger firmware that is like the 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. And I'm on like version 3.8 or 3.9, right? What's funny is all those versions have lined up with my different business ventures over the years as I've, kind of leveled up. And as I've done each one, it was always like, hey, we're, this is this project we're working on now, my gyms, prior businesses, BLG, they're all big firmware upgrades, and there's new like downloads that need to be made along the way. And those are those skill updates. And I'm always looking at it like, oh, those are part of the whole system that goes with me to the next entire version, right? Like the 4.0 version of Will is going to have all those updates along the way that include like better sales process, better operations management. For me, like, sales and marketing were something that kind of came easy, right? I was a great salesman. So like, I was like, what's the next thing? I need to get more people in front of me so I can sell more. So I got to learn how to market. Right. Like, and then that's why I realized like, oh, I kind of have a bias. I'm not great at operational stuff or management stuff or like necessarily like leadership. And so the whole last version of Will has been like all like the last year, like all the updates in the last year have been like team, SOP, management. And now I would say like, man, I think I'm up there in that top, maybe not 1%, but probably 5% of like operators and leaders to move my company to the place it needs to go, because I realized like, oh, cool, I can sell stuff, but now we're bottlenecking at the fulfillment level, right? We need to get better people in our program that can better carry out the things that Will would have done himself if he was in that seat, right?
Yeah, that is you and I are on the same trajectory, my friend. Like I realized that what got me to 1 million is not what is going to get me to 3. And just to be honest with the listeners or viewers, that's I want to make $1 million a year, right? That's a small goal. And so based off of my profit margins, that's how we're gonna, we can do that when we get to 3. So it's important I understand that my team is going to be the thing that I need to leverage. And because there are more people there and they need skills and development. And so that's where I'm going with that. That's where I'm taking them. So we have weekly meetings, like little huddles, and then we have large group meetings. The large group meetings can be development for them as a whole, but the individual ones is to be like, hey, what do you need? Like, where are you at? Like, how can we help here? And those are just 15 minutes it's deposits, right? You just make those weekly deposits, and by the end of the year, man, they're a completely different person.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're a person that believes in helping your customer evolve, your members evolve to a better version of themselves, you should have the same philosophy on yourself, right? And that like the version you think you are now, you need to have an awareness to say like, oh, like we're not done. And there, unfortunately, are a lot of people that are really stuck in their ways. They view things that are not necessarily principles as principles, and that keeps them from growing, right? But then meanwhile, they talk about their customer as if like they're not a static thing. And I'm like, well, we're all kind of cut from a similar type of matter, if you will. We're all, like we're all 99% the same. I think it's like 99.7% the same. Shit, we're 97% the same as a monkey, right? So like, we are built to evolve and adapt, and we have to challenge ourselves and not be hard and fast of this is the way I do things, this is the way I am. At least and there are times where it makes sense to be that way, especially in a world where what you see isn't always what you get. But I do think you can go that too far in that direction. Yeah, great conversation, man. Really, really good stuff. Now, as a little transition, I know we've worked together here at Big Little Gyms. What has it been, like 2 years now? 3 years that you've
It'll
been
be
on?
2 years in May.
Yeah, as a part of the Big Little Gyms tribe. One of the things we pride ourselves on in Big Little Gyms is being a collective and a community of gym owners, like you and Mike Wilson and a bunch of other people that we are both good friends with that have been in, they're going to be on these podcasts. Some of the first guests I'm going to have on the podcast are all people that I'm tightest with, that are kind of leaders in our community. And it's kind of one of the benefits of being in the tribe is it's not just a set of systems or, coaching or playbooks. It's also the collective, some of the parts, right? Kind of a masterminding effect. I'm not going to call it a mastermind, but we definitely bake in some of those elements. And I want to talk a little bit about the partnership, how our partnership, us working together. 'Cause it's kind of how I view my relationship with my clients. Is it's not I sell you something and you consume it. It's that we are kind of like a silent partner. Like I kind of, even though you kind of have your CMO skills already, it's kind of like you have to have another like some person that's not taking equity in your company, but that you can use as a resource. So I'd love to hear how that's impacted your gym's growth and operations. So question for you, just for anybody who's listening, who's considering working with us, what were things like before working with Big Little Gyms? Obviously you already had a ton of success, but you definitely, I get your text because you text me when you cross these hurdles and these thresholds, and you've definitely made some evolution since us working together. And I don't want to take credit for all that because you're definitely a person who works on themselves just as much as you'll listen to me. But I'd love to hear some of the things that you were stuck on prior, that maybe things that you were looking to solve when you came to us.
Yeah. I came to you because you were talking about organic and paid, and you called it paid organic in your organic content. And I was like, I like that. What is that about? And so like we got into conversations about that. We had chatted for a while before I ever enrolled with BLG. And you even told me in the sales meeting, you're like, look, I don't know if I can take you to, like what I'm able to increase other gyms at because you are operationally speaking, are like a lot of things are already working well for you.
Yeah, it's hard to triple a gym that's already kind of like near the limits of what most of these gyms operates at, but it's like 10, 20%. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, we can move, little things. And that wasn't the reason what sold me on BLG. And people will reach out to me that are considering BLG and they'll be like, hey, I saw that you're in BLG. I'm considering them in another company. I'm like, okay, and that other company may be a guru, right? And so, and I'd say that if you're looking for a guru, I don't know if BLG is it. I look at BLG as a sum of its parts, and it is a machine because you get a website, you get a CRM, you get automations, you get a community of gym owners who are asking questions and are trying to figure things out like you are. So if maybe somebody else has already asked that question, you can go into the group and search it and find it. And then there is a myriad of videos. It's a library of videos of content that you can go back and consume if you find that question inside of that portal. And it is for that in itself, I think it's very helpful for those that are growing and or are on the upper end. And the thing is that I have not, just because we have had some success in our world, I'm still looking to grow. I'm still looking to refine processes. I'm still looking to, make our product better. And I still will go back and use things. I'm going to be running a retargeting campaign here soon. And I'm going to go back and watch that video because maybe there's something in there that, like, oh, okay, it was still things that I know, but maybe it was that one button. If I toggle that was a difference maker. Got it. Okay. So I think that when you look at BLG as a sum of its parts and not just a one trick pony, or it's an entire process of being able to operate these things. And then I think that the best thing that you've adapted lately is that you moved the group calls to like a quadrant. That you speak on different things, and I think for a lot of gym owners, that's very, very helpful because they are going to acquire more skills that way, rather than just showing that they may look at the call and go, "Oh, I can't make that call today. I'm doing okay here. Oh, next week is on this. I'm going to go to that one for sure."
Yeah.
And then they will make an adjust time. And I think that that's one of the great things that you've done with BLG recently. And, the thing is that people think that, you know, I want a guru, or two, I want a website, or like if you're looking for just those are amenities, man. Like it's like the person going to the gym and being like, "So you got you got some different kind of seasoning here that you've got on your sauna? Like what do you
Yeah.
like come
It's
on."
it's more of like we sell, it's just like we talked about earlier with like your gym offer. Like it's what I think you're trying to say is like we sell an outcome versus like
Yes.
individual set of incremental improvements, you know?
Yes. And
Yeah.
I mean there are gyms in there that I have watched go from being like pedestrian numbers to like $50,000 gyms. And I think that's awesome. And that's like to see gyms, get that hammer back there, because they've grown their gym to over 50,000. That was also me being somebody who chases trophies. I was like, "Hey Will, I want that trophy. I'm already at this number. So what can we do to kind of like make it be a little bit something more?" And you're like, "All right, well, why don't we do 60K?" And I was like, "Cool, let's go run after 60K." And I said, "But let's do it for 3 months in a row."
Yeah. I remember that conversation as you came on, you were already a 50K gym. And for you, like to speak a little bit to the guru thing, like, yeah, I'm not a guru, But one could say, obviously, me and you've had a lot of conversations, and it's always giving the person what they need as an individual to drive the business to the next level, right? And for you, I sense like, okay, this guy tactically has got most of it down. Sure, there's some things he can do incrementally better, but really, like he just needs more drive and a bigger target, right? So that's exactly what we did. Is like, oh, the 50K Club hammer, we give those out to gyms that cross the 50K mark. And you were like, oh, I'm already at 50K. I'm like, okay, it wouldn't be fair to give this to you because you came in with it and we're not just giving out token awards. And at the same time, you didn't want that. You were like, how can I earn it? Mm-hmm. And I remember saying like, well, at the time, I don't think you'd crossed 60 that many times. I think you'd only done it. I think that's what you said. I'd only done it twice and it was never back-to-back months. So I said to you, let's do it back-to-back months, but not even that. Let's do 3 months in a row. And then you've done something you've never done before. And for me, that felt like me earning my keep with working with you of like, okay, let's give this guy a target. And we had a couple conversations along the way that were probably different from what most gym owners would probably need to hear at a smaller level. But that's the truth of it. Is like, it's the same with me and my business. A guy that's helping any type of tech company grow, there's going to be the guy who's trying to make their first million and the guy that's trying to go to 10, and completely different set of problems and different conversations and goals you need to set. Right. So pretty spot on. Now, real quick, what are some of the successes you've had? Obviously, that's one of them, right? That's one of your successes right there. You did back to back 60K months when you hadn't yet before. You've also, I don't think you had crossed the $1 million run rate mark prior either. You had gotten I think, like you said, you had crossed 60 a couple times prior sporadically in little spikes, but you've normalized, I think, the 60K month. I think that's like your normal month. And then you've since had some repeated, or at least in close proximity to each other, $1 million run rate months, which is 83,334 or more is $1 million run rate. You've crossed that a couple times more recently, right?
Yeah, we've done it. We did it 3 times over 83,333. Done that over 3 times. Since coming on with BLG, we've increased from by 200K every single year since then. Last year we had a leaky bucket, man. No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about 23 since 25 is here. In 23, we added like 200 some odd people and only had a fraction of that left in the gym. And I was like, crap, we got a problem. So we went back and revisited things and how we were positioning our offer. And so it's just, there's that getting over that $1 million run rate. Now the goal is that 83 is now the floor.
That's the normal.
That's the normal.
I'll issue that challenge and goal for you now as accountability for everybody to hear, but that needs to be before you're allowed to be back on the podcast again. That needs to be the average of the year.
That is game.
Okay.
So the goal this year, and I'll put this out there for everybody that you can at me, you can ask me, you can whatever. By December of this year, the goal is to do 1.5 million this year.
Let's do it. I'm excited for that.
So I'm not interested in $1 million. I'm interested in 3 million. Because that's like goal wise, that's what we want for the gym. The staff is very clear on that. In all of our reporting, we highlight the day as green or red because it is either we did it or we didn't, and because then we see that color. You don't want that color on your scorecard.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and just to kind of close out our little, brief testimonial for BLG, which I really appreciate you doing. And for anybody else listening, I think it helps fill them in on what we do, because it's one of the reasons why we do this is we don't do a podcast not only just to give value, but obviously to promote what we do and help as many gyms as possible. So what would you tell another gym owner who's considering working with Big Little Gyms?
I would tell them that they're going to get a robust offer of information with a CRM that will give you back time, that will allow for you to automate things, that in the event that if you are a one-person show, that it will give you back time that will sound like you, that will be able to get leads to respond if you are teaching classes. And so you can still grow your gym when you are still as a one-person show. For those people that are, have a handful of employees or, contractors, and, you're going to be, I've watched, like I said, multiple gyms go from like $30,000 to $50,000. And That's part of the system. And then the teaching and the of how you're going to be able to like set your offer and set your sales process and the codex of how you're going to design that. People get super excited. They get super excited in the group when they start to uncover and unlock these things. And that's something that, like, if you are down on your luck and things are not going well and you don't have the vision and the belief, that I do believe that if you were to do that and you take the plunge and you sign up, look, it is a very, very fair rate. And I would tell people that, like, if they're concerned about pricing, you're going to be fine.
Well, thank you for that. Without spilling the beans, because we
I'm
want
not
to.
spilling no beans. I'm
Yeah,
just letting.
yeah. No, that's great. But I love that you didn't also say cheap, because one could say we're probably cheap for what we do, but I don't like the
It's
word
not
cheap.
cheap.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
incredibly valuable.
yeah, incredibly valuable. Thank you. That's the right way to put it. Good stuff, man. Well, thank you for that. So the fun part, which thank you again for doing that. And if you are a gym owner looking to unlock your full potential, Big Little Gyms is here to help. I mean, we have the proven systems for expert support, provide you the tools you need to scale your business, as Drew mentioned, and increase revenue and build your thriving community. And you guys can go to biglittlegyms.com to schedule that free call. But I want to get to the fun part that I know Drew's been itching to share some of just like a little bit more about himself. This is kind of our rapid fire round that we do at the end of the interview, which is just to learn a little bit more about Drew and just have some fun. And, I want to hear from Drew, like, what's your, favorite, your favorite workout or movement, if you can only do one, or just like one that you enjoy doing. If you need to punish yourself, what's your favorite way to do it?
Favorite lift, back squat or a squat clean. Favorite gymnastic movement, handstand push-ups. I am elite. I can compete with games athletes on that. That's, maybe that's why I'm short, because my spine just keeps getting compressed.
You keep compressing your spine. Like, it can't get taller, might as well complicate it.
Absolutely.
Give
Just
gravity
put it
some
on the
help.
wall.
Yeah, good stuff. What's the funniest and most memorable moment you've had at Pendulum? Like, what's something that you'll always remember, about this looking back?
So funniest moment, I don't have from the poll, but I can say the most memorable moment was when we came back, and it was the first time that we had refilled a 20-person class, and I pulled everybody in, and I got emotional, and I cried. And I'm emotional now because at the time of this recording, my community is decimated. Decimated. We've had over people as of right now that I know that have lost their homes from the fires. And when we came back, everything was to buy our home in Pasadena. And to think about that being taken away from us now kills me. And our home is okay, but it was 1,000 meters away from that fire. And so our members that have lost their home and are stranded now, that guts me. Because when we came back, and it was so special, and it was like, I was so proud. And I told them, I said, I will never take you guys for granted. I will never take this gym for granted again. It is incredibly powerful and special to me, and I'm so thankful for you all. And that the community and the culture that we have here is unique and special. And I know a lot of gyms say that, but we intentionally try to create, cultivate, and grow that. So that is like the most special thing, was that one moment in that. And so more on the softies, emotional side of things than the funny ones, because the funny ones are like, I say stupid stuff every day.
I was going to say, and having to know the Drew Gurton that I know and hung out with you a lot in person, the minute we jumped on this podcast today, I could sense a little bit of the weight of what's happening where you are in your part of the country, which Drew's gym is in Southern California, which as we speak, and with that going on, him telling me, I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to date the podcast, but this is obviously this is real. Like, this is a real thing, and I don't care if it does. And I'm like, like he said on Drew's social media, I commented on it too. I saw your story, and literally, like, in your backyard, you can see the fire, like probably not very far from where your homes are. And that right there spoke enough to me to be like, oh, this is real and does come down to earth. This isn't, this isn't 10 miles away. This is in his backyard, and his members are experiencing this. And you're a goofier guy, I would say, when you're not carrying that weight. And, I hadn't sensed as much of that energy, but it's not a negative. It just speaks to the type of person that you are and that you really do embody the culture and community of your gym and your members. And I still miss it to this day with my gyms. And so one thing that I wish I could have my kids around a little bit more that I don't have is, I'm even getting a little emotional as you bring it up. I remember having those powwows and having members have major life events happen. I'm grateful we didn't have any mass emergencies, but we certainly had people whose family, important people pass, or individual life events, things that you would never hope happens to you or anybody happen to people, and we had to support them. And it speaks a lot to the type of person you are. And I would definitely say that when you say the word community, I'm sure you fully embody it.
Yeah,
friend.
absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I may not be great at throwing parties. That's why I hire people to do that for me. But, the culture, and if you are no longer coaching, it is your job to sell people and then to shake hands, kiss babies, be in the community, and, be in your people's lives. And, yeah, man, you just don't disappear from the floor. It just evolves.
You evolve into what is, I think, a true leader, right? I'd say the skill set I have now on the leadership end that I've carried with me into BLG, I learned in my last 2 years of owning my gym when I did, do all the things we talked about in this interview, where other than some sales and managing the marketing end, it was team meetings, staffing, hiring, making sure people were in the right places. But we even had a manager to help do that. But it was just being what's the term we use in the tribe? The mayor of the gym, right? Mm-hmm. The mayor. Yeah. It's like the president or the president of the gym, right? The president in our country, everybody makes a big deal about it. And culturally, the president in our country does shift things. But that's because that's really what they represent. As far as what they actually have control over, it's limited because you have other things that prevent them from just being a dictator. It's the same in your gym. And that's how you could be a dictator of your gym, but how you should walk into your gym is you're the embodiment of it, right? And so... yeah, that's huge, man. And I didn't know by asking that question it was going to get so deep, but it's a great note to, kind of bring it to an end. And with that, last couple of questions I did have for you. You already shared a couple, but I like to ask everybody at the end of the podcast, what's a book or a resource that every gym owner should check out? If there's something they could go buy off a shelf, or it could be a device that's made your life easier, or a book, that you've read, something that you want to share with them.
3 books that I would recommend for people to do. The first one would be Profit First, obviously, for business purposes, just for understanding how to make money. Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone been highly effective for me. Third one, Chris Voss. I've really appreciated his, which is Never Split the Difference. I think that is a life hack, man. And especially if you're married.
Of course, absolutely. It's always a negotiation. Even if you don't think you're negotiating, you are. It's the nature of the dynamic of the masculine and the feminine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, man. A powerful interview, especially at the end there. It really all came together to show the quality of the person you are, the type of business owner you are, which is the guy that I've come to know because we've had many meetings in our live events, the BLG live events. You've come out to a couple now. We've got to hang out late over the kitchen island and snack on dessert together and talk about other things besides gym ownership. And you're just a great guy and someone I would call a friend. And thanks for sharing the journey with us and the insights for all the other gym owners listening. Your experience and success with Pendulum has been truly inspiring, man. For our listeners, if you guys want to know more about Drew or follow and kind of spy on Pendulum, as so many of us as gym owners like to do, it makes sense to model what's working. Be sure to follow Drew on social media at Drew Gerton. I'll put links to his social media profiles in the description below, wherever you are watching or listening to this at. And if you're in Pasadena, California, which is a place a lot of people like to travel to, it's in the LA area, be sure to stop by Pendulum and see what Drew's doing, experience a class for yourself, get a photo and tag him on the internet. I'm sure he'd love that. And if you're ready to take your gym to the next level, like so many like Drew have, Drew obviously came into BLG with a whole lot of success and has only continued to accelerate since. You're more than welcome to check out biglittlegyms.com and book a free strategy call. And let's get you started on your own growth journey. Join us next time for another inspiring guest who's going to make waves in the fitness industry. You won't want to miss it.